The sales associate noticed him the moment he stepped inside, not because he looked suspicious, not because he caused a scene, but because he didn't belong to the picture they had already decided to protect. Andre Williams was 17, black, tall, dressed in a plain hoodie and sneakers that had seen better days. He had taken the bus across the city after school, backpack still slung over one shoulder, heart beating faster than he wanted it to. The storefront on Fifth Avenue gleamed like it existed in a different country. Glass polished to perfection, mannequins frozen in effortless wealth, a security guard standing just a little too straight. Andre paused at the door. He had walked past this luxury brand 100 times. Today he stepped in. The air inside smelled expensive. Leather, perfume, silence. Every sound, his footsteps, the rustle of his jacket, felt louder than it should have been. White walls, soft lighting, everything designed to make you feel small unless you already knew you belonged. Andre moved slowly, deliberately. He didn't touch anything. He knew the rules even if no one had spoken them aloud. Don't wander, don't linger, don't look too interested. Still, the associate followed him. At first it was subtle. A step here, a glance in the mirror there, then less subtle. The man positioned himself between Andre and a display of watches worth more than Andre's mother made in a year. "Can I help you?" the associate asked, voice smooth but eyes guarded. Andre shook his head. "Just looking." The associate smiled tightly. "Our pieces are curated. If you're looking for something specific, I can assist." Andre nodded and stepped away, pretending to examine a jacket. He had seen it online already. He knew the stitching, the cut, the history of the brand. He had done a school project on luxury supply chains, how image mattered more than fabric, how exclusivity was manufactured. What he hadn't studied was how it felt to be watched like a risk. A second associate joined the first. Then the security guard shifted position near the entrance. Andre caught his reflection in a mirrored column. Black, young, unwelcome. After 5 minutes, the first associate spoke again. "We don't allow backpacks on the floor," he said. "You'll need to leave it at the front." Andre looked around. Other customers, older, white, confident, carried bags without issue. "I can hold it," Andre said. The associate's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Store policy." Andre didn't argue. He nodded, turned, and walked out. No scene, no raised voice, no accusation. Outside, the city noise rushed back in. Andre stood on the sidewalk for a moment, staring at the brand's name etched in gold above the door. He wasn't angry. He was focused. That night, Andre opened his laptop in the small bedroom he shared with stacks of library books and handwritten notes. He didn't write about the humiliation. He wrote about the business, the margins, the brand valuation, the illusion of scarcity. He wrote about power. Because Andre understood something important before he ever had money. Luxury brands didn't sell products, they sold permission. And one day he decided he would own the kind of permission that couldn't be taken away by a glance, a stereotype, or a locked smile behind a counter. They had profiled a teen shopper. They had no idea they were standing at the beginning of a deal that would end with their name on papers they didn't control. Andre didn't go back to the store. Not the next day, not the next month, not even when he passed it on his way to work years later. He didn't need to. What stayed with him wasn't the associate's voice or the security guard's stare, it was the efficiency of it all. How smoothly the system worked, how quickly a decision was made about who was worth attention and who was worth monitoring. Andre graduated high school with honors and a quiet reputation for being good with numbers. Teachers suggested engineering. Guidance counselors mentioned finance without much conviction, as if unsure whether the suggestion fit the student in front of them. Andre chose business. In college, he worked 2 jobs, one in the campus library, one tutoring freshmen in statistics. He studied brands the way some people studied languages. Not the ads, but the balance sheets. Not the slogans, but the ownership structures. He learned how companies borrowed against their image, how debt could be hidden behind prestige, how legacy brands often survived on reputation long after innovation stopped. Luxury, he learned, was fragile. It depended on belief, and belief depended on control. During his junior year, Andre interned at a mid-sized investment firm that specialized in retail acquisitions. On his first day, a senior analyst glanced at his resume and said, "You don't look like most of our interns." Andre smiled politely. "I know." He worked harder than everyone else. Not louder, not flashier. Just more thoroughly. He stayed late, ran scenarios no one asked for, questioned assumptions others took for granted. When a senior partner dismissed one of his models as too conservative, Andre quietly tracked the numbers for 6 months. His projection was right. People started listening. After graduation, Andre moved quickly. He didn't chase prestige firms. He followed leverage. He joined a private equity group that specialized in distressed but valuable brands, the kind with strong names and weak foundations. Brands people trusted without checking why. He learned how to wait. Years passed. Andre grew into his authority the same way he'd grown into his silence, without asking permission. He wore tailored suits now, drove a car that didn't announce itself, spoke in meetings only when he was prepared to finish them. And then, one afternoon, a familiar name appeared in a market briefing. The luxury brand. Sales down, expansion stalled. Heavy debt from overseas manufacturing bets that hadn't paid off. Andre read the report slowly, then pulled up the brand's ownership structure. The founders were long gone. The current executives rotated every few years. The image was intact, but the core was hollow. The same gold lettering, the same glass storefronts, the same illusion of exclusivity. Andre leaned back in his chair. He remembered standing on the sidewalk years ago, backpack on his shoulder, watching that same name gleam above the door. He wasn't 17 anymore, and this time he wouldn't be asking to look around. He forwarded the report to his team with a short note. "Let's explore acquisition pathways. No emotion, no revenge, just business." Because Andre had learned something the brand never had. You don't need to belong in the store to own the building. And the deal that would change everything had already begun moving. Quietly, efficiently, exactly the way power liked to operate. The process took 2 years. Not because the brand fought hard, but because Andre refused to rush. He had learned early that impatience was expensive and ego even more so. While headlines still described the company as iconic and heritage-driven, Andre and his team studied what the headlines never mentioned: supplier contracts that hadn't been renegotiated in a decade, licensing deals that bled profit, flagship stores that cost more to maintain than they generated. The brand looked untouchable from the outside. From the inside, it was exhausted. Andre never put his name on the front line. He let analysts run numbers. Let junior partners ask questions. Let consultants underestimate him the way people always had. In meetings, he listened more than he spoke, watching executives talk about protecting the brand while quietly admitting they didn't know how to grow it anymore. One afternoon, during a due diligence call, the brand's CFO dismissed a concern Andre raised about inventory risk. "Our customer base is extremely loyal," the CFO said confidently. "We don't have to chase trends." Andre leaned forward slightly. "You don't have to," he said calmly, "but your customers already are." There was a pause. The CFO frowned. "Excuse me?" Andre shared his screen. Data pulled from resale platforms, secondary markets, social sentiment analyses. The brand's products were being flipped, customized, repurposed, not by the traditional luxury consumer, but by younger buyers the company didn't market to and didn't understand. "They want the name," Andre continued, "not the rules." The call ended differently than it began. From that point on, Andre's role shifted. He was no longer just part of a potential acquisition. He was the person executives began asking uncomfortable questions of, because he answered them without flinching. When the offer finally came, it wasn't hostile. It didn't need to be. The board framed it as a strategic partnership, a way to preserve legacy while securing the future. Andre read the term sheet alone in his office late one evening. Majority stake, operational control, full restructuring authority. He signed. The press release broke a week later. Financial outlets covered it like a curiosity. Young investor leads acquisition of legacy luxury brand. Some mentioned Andre's age. Some mentioned his background. None mentioned the store on Fifth Avenue or the teenager with a backpack who had once been asked to leave quietly. On the day Andre first walked back into the flagship store, he did it without ceremony. Same glass doors, same scent, same polished silence. A sales associate approached him. Different face, same posture. "Welcome," she said warmly. "May I help you with anything?" Andre smiled. "No," he replied. "I'm just looking." She nodded and stepped back. No one followed him this time. Andre walked through the space slowly, touching nothing, observing everything. He stopped near the watches, the same display he hadn't been allowed near years ago, and looked at his reflection in the glass. He didn't feel satisfaction. He felt clarity, because ownership wasn't about walking in differently. It was about changing what happened after. And soon, every decision made behind these walls would carry the quiet influence of someone the brand once decided didn't belong. Until he bought the right to decide who did, Andre never announced himself to the staff. He didn't call a meeting on his first day. He didn't tour the offices with executives trailing behind him, pointing out what they thought he'd want to see. Instead, he asked for reports. Old ones, unpolished ones, customer complaints that had been summarized instead of read. Exit interviews no one had revisited. He wanted to understand the brand the way it actually functioned, not the way it described itself. What he found confirmed everything he'd suspected years earlier, standing outside that store with a backpack on his shoulder. The brand's idea of luxury was built on exclusion without intention. Not craftsmanship, not care, just habit. They confused being selective with being blind. Andre began making changes quietly. Store policies were rewritten, not announced, just enforced. Profiling was addressed the same way margins were, directly. Training shifted from protect the brand to understand the customer. Sales associates were evaluated not only on revenue, but on retention. Who came back? Who felt welcome enough to return? Some executives pushed back. "This risks diluting the image," one said during a closed-door meeting. Andre listened, then replied calmly, "An image that survives by shrinking isn't luxury, it's fear." That ended the debate. Within a year, the brand looked the same from the outside, but felt different on the inside. Younger customers appeared, diverse customers. Customers who didn't ask permission to belong and didn't need to be taught how to behave. Sales rose, not explosively, but sustainably. Then Andre did something no one expected. He turned down a naming opportunity. The board suggested honoring him. Press, features, a profile in a business magazine highlighting his unlikely journey. Andre declined all of it. "I don't want the story to be about me," he said. "I want it to be about who feels welcome here 5 years from now." The real moment came quietly, the way it always did. One afternoon, Andre sat in a conference room overlooking Fifth Avenue when his assistant mentioned an incident report. A teenage boy had come into the flagship store after school. Hoodie, backpack, nervous. Staff had flagged him as a potential risk, then stopped. Instead, an associate had greeted him, asked what he liked, let him look. The boy didn't buy anything, but he smiled when he left. Andre closed the report and leaned back in his chair. No headlines covered that moment. No press release announced it. But Andre knew that was the point. Power didn't need applause when it was finally being used correctly. Years earlier, a luxury brand had profiled a teen shopper and quietly decided he didn't belong. Now, that same brand was owned by someone who had learned the cost of that decision and made sure it would never be repeated, not loudly, Not dramatically, but permanently.